What cliche about the US do you hear most? That isn't true, not anymore. US beer is no longer just Budweiser and Miller. The US craft beer makers are some of the top in the world now. That we all wear shoes in the house. It all depends on the cultural background of each household. I come from an Asian immigrant family and we do not wear shoes in the house. That we're the fattest country on earth. Quite a few countries have surpassed us in obesity. Not everyone in the US is constantly eating fast food and shooting guns. Some of us actually enjoy kale and reading books. We're not actually especially litigious. Pretty par for the course. Plus, being more litigious happens when you gave more wealthier people who can take advantage of the law, so it's not inherently a bad thing. Really, the US would be healthier if we had more litigation, because it would mean more people are wealthy enough to access the judicial system. You're not at any major risk of being victim to gun violence while visiting the country. 9 times out of 10, the gun violence is coming from an area that doesn't care about you and you will not visit. And that 10th time is an extreme outlier case. Also, chances are if you're getting shot, you're partaking in something to get your ass shot. And no, school shootings hardly make up the overall statistics. And I'm talking about actual school shootings, not a gang beef that flares up at school. That were terrible and rude tourists, the ugly American abroad. Americans are certainly loud and can be entitled. Often it's due to cultural differences, such as being surprised that you get very little ice in your drinks and they don't do refills. Also, sweet tea isn't a thing in Europe. The rudest tourists in the world are, by far, mainland Chinese and the British, specifically the English. That they are rude. Certainly, I've encountered some that are. However, the vast majority that I've encountered are very polite, gracious, and generous people. That nobody here has electric tea kettles, that they are not even stocked in department stores. I've found them in almost every house I've been to in the US, and in every store that sells home goods except when they are temporarily out of stock. Yes, even though they are less efficient than in many other countries because of our voltage standards. Some of the people who say this are from the US, so I think it's likely regional. But it's definitely not true that it's universally hard to find electric kettles or tea drinkers in the US. The ugly American going to Europe and breaking all their norms, loud, brash, drunk, always wearing a USA shirt. The English tool that crown from us. I remember visiting over the last 2 decades and more people are relieved that I'm not English or Italian for that matter. I'm not saying no American is like that. But an English stag or hen party is something Europeans run from. The clit that all Americans eat is fast food daily. While fast food is undeniably popular and accessible across the country, there's a growing trend towards health-conscious eating and locally sourced foods. Many Americans now prioritize balanced diets, making the stereotype increasingly outdated. The majority of us are not like the weirdos making the headlines. That everyone drives a giant truck and carries a gun everywhere. We aren't all loud asshole tourists. Sure, they exist, but it's far from all of us. The most consistently loud and obnoxious tourists in my experiences have been English people. That Americans are generally pretty optimistic. This might just be my millennial showing, but most people seem to be pretty pessimistic about the future. America not using the metric system. That everyone's morbidly obese. There's definitely a lot of fat people here, especially due to countrywide money issues, and the quality here is incredibly ass. But I barely know any fat people, and I know that because I always noticed how I was always the fat friend. I live in San Diego, so I bet the stats are different in places like the South or something, but that's just what I know from my own experiences. That we don't have good cheese. Americans don't travel internationally, or Americans don't have passports. Millennials and Gen Z may not be able to afford to buy homes, but they love to travel the world and make Instagram-worthy memories. I wish that the everyone loves guns stereotype would be a correct answer to this question.